In the dark alleyways of the urban jungle, Chang follows trails of blood that he calls trails of agitation, the telltale signs of a bizarro, strange creatures that defy all logic and reason. Upon touching the blood, its power flows through him. Soon after, a pool of blood violently bursts and nearly harms him, but he manages to jump out of the way just in time. The eye on his chest speaks, warning him that this bizarro uses pools of agitation to move and sneak around its opponent before it kills them. It would be simple enough if there were just one source to dance around, but another wall is drenched with agitation, with vague figures of bizarros writhing and crawling about. Chang sharply notices the true bizarro, and he yanks it out of the wall, revealing it to be a morbid, armless dancer, reminiscent of ice skaters. Around her face is a patchwork of yellow eyes, and even her legs appear to be stitched together. Chang keeps his distance and praises the bizarro's legs, because he is a man of culture. However, his eye warns him not to unnecessarily agitate them, as bizarros grow more dangerous the more riled up they are. Seeing that their foe is already in battle mode, the eye prompts Chang to fight back using the agitation drip he absorbed earlier. Chang activates his power, Blitzkrieg, which causes him to sprout out powerful tendrils that reach out to impede the bizarro's movements. However, Chang scratches his head and worries that this might be interpreted as harassment, and his eye tells him to get his mind out of the gutter. Suddenly, the bizarro breaks free of his grip and fights back, prompting Chang to unleash a second attack and constricting her again. The bizarro struggles to break free, and unexpectedly, her chest bursts open, revealing an inner maw that snaps at Chang, impaling him in the chest. His carelessness has caused this. Chang's body goes limp, and he fears that he may die here. As the larger maw prepares to devour him, he wonders why he ever signed up for this. His vision goes dark. Yesterday, Chang was just your average, ordinary high school senior, but he can see things unseen to the naked eye. Strange monsters and beings called bizarros surround him. It freaked him out as a child, but when he learned that nobody else could see them, the fear turned into a morbid fascination with the unknown, a world untouched, all to his own. However, because of his strange condition, his parents thought he was a freak. He was sent to live alone in the city, without friends. It became a lonesome existence. While strolling through the city, he discovers a red trail, which he attributes to an abnormal existence. Suddenly, a small, octopus-like being lands on his face. Chang clearly has a soft spot for these bizarros, and he chases it after it jumps out of his hands. Instead, he runs into a beautiful girl who can sense that he can also see bizarros, the strange creatures he has been seeing all his life. Chang is instantly enamored by her beauty, and his heart starts beating restlessly. This encounter would change his life forever. Every fiber of his being is warning him that the woman is not a human either, but instead a humanoid bizarro. The woman is intrigued that Chang is neither frightened nor disturbed by bizarros, and she offers him a job working alongside her, finding lost bizarros in this world and returning them to their rightful place. She promises this will give him a chance to interact with more bizarros, and if he has the guts to accept, she'll even give him all the guidance necessary. The woman extends her hand, holding a strange patch of flesh with a sinister eye in the center. Chang, who always wanted to play with and experience more bizarros, heartily accepts. Chang's eyes open again, and as his eyesight readjusts, he sees another girl trying to rouse him up. Seeing that he is finally awake, she asks him if he is the new freelancer they hired. The bizarro returns and attacks them both, prompting the girl to carry Chang to safety. The girl appears annoyed that Chang had the audacity to warn her, though Chang is more preoccupied with his now absent wounds. The girl reminds him that she cannot directly fight the bizarro. She will be relying on his ability, Blitzkrieg, to shut it down like it shut down Poland. The bizarro discovers them again, and her scythe-like legs cut off the girl's head. She tells him not to worry, as this is part of her ability, and she tells him to focus on the bizarro. Chang composes himself and claims that he found a way to snap the bizarro out of its agitation. He moves his finger over his eye and calls himself the Bizarro Whisperer. Suddenly, the bizarro is inexplicably pulled towards him. He trips her up and constrains her with his tendrils, and slowly he begins draining her of agitation. This is one aspect of his power, Blitz. They are not just powerful tendrils and appendages, but they also possess a power that wards off agitation. He approaches the bizarro and reassures her that he is here to help. Enraged, the bizarro breaks free of his grip, and the girl warns Chang that it is now undergoing an agitation eruption, which occurs when their anger reaches its peak. When the bizarro attacks, Chang catches her mid-air with Blitz, coils her in it, and slowly lifts her towards him. He calmly and affectionately caresses her legs, recognizing that she was just hurt and afraid, and noting the injuries and scars on her legs and side feet. He begins comforting the Bizarro, sympathizing with her pain and the lonely road she has walked so far. He reassures her she is not alone, and he is here to help bring her back to where she belongs. Even without a face, the Bizarro is evidently charmed by him. However, the girl is extremely confused by his way of doing things, and Chang tells the Bizarro not to mind her. She's just jealous that they're so close. The Bizarro cuddles up to him even harder. The girl who gave him his powers reappears and praises him for his hard work. It looks like his Bizarro Whisperer title isn't just for show. She says that this was all a test for him, and since he passed it with flying colors, she offers to bring him to Bizarro World and to fully explain what Bizarros truly are. Chang is on his way to make a Bizarro harem. He wants some of that eldritchessy. The girl tells Chang to get into a car, where the Bizarro from earlier also happened to be. Chang is surprised that they actually use cars. The girl looks at him weirdly. Sure, they deal with eldritch horrors, but they're not cavemen. They have the technology. However, Chang himself senses that the car itself is a Bizarro. It transforms into a manta ray-like Bizarro, and it travels through dimensions. Soon enough, they land in Bizarro World. The manta ray spits them out, and Chang is absolutely enchanted by how wonderful and whimsical this world is. As per human customs, the girl invites Chang into a bar, reminiscent of Mos Eisley, filled with a colorful cast of characters. The four take their seats, and the girl finally introduces herself, Nonentity, the Lord of Moonrise, which is the Bizarro homeland. Chang is disturbed that her name is a degradation in and of itself, but she does not mind, as she says it serves as a reminder of her status as an outcast. She explains that in essence, Bizarros are creatures that are alien from the human world. In fact, even in their original homeworlds, they are already considered outcasts. However, in reality, they are frightened creatures themselves, despite their immense power. But that power comes with great responsibility, and they fear hurting those around them. Because they do not fit in a particular group, they are seen as beings of disaster and misfortune. I do not blame them. That Bizarro from earlier had an inner maw. Nonentity corrects Chang. Moonrise is not a home, but a prison. Regardless, it is a safe prison where they can't hurt anybody. Nonentity formally invites Chang to work for her, to find runaway Bizarros and bring them to Moonrise, where they can live in peace. This is for their own protection and for the safety of the world. Chang doesn't really care about all that political jazz. He just wants to give the Bizarro girls some tender love and care. To prevent Chang from causing trouble, Nonentity assigns the girl, Shu, a native Bizarro, to watch over him and serve as his guide in navigating Moonrise. However, Shu still hasn't acknowledged Chang or his strange and unorthodox methods. She challenges him to name something special about her as a Bizarro, and he teases that her nasty personality is that of a human. Angry, she threatens to beat him up, but he tries calming her down by holding her face, literally. Suddenly, Chang kisses her to confirm something for himself. He deduces from her ability to detach her own head that she must be the gorgeous head, as recorded in Strange Tales from Liu Shai, not to be confused with Strange Tales from Marvel Comics. Based on this, her body is only a synthetic one, which she can only control while attached to it, all except for one arm, which is still part of her original body. Annoyed and outraged of having her entire being dismantled and laid out in front of her, Shu knocks him outside with a well-placed headbutt. However, something is odd. Chang feels like he has been falling for far too long. When he finally looks around him, he discovers that Moonrise itself is one gigantic Bizarro. Thankfully, green tendrils extend from above to catch him and bring him back to a balcony, where Nonentity and Shu are waiting. Nonentity sees no problem with him horsing around, but she had hoped that he and Shu would get along. She has a bright idea. He and Shu should live together from now on, which the two obviously think is not a great idea. Chang enters a room which is surprisingly plain compared to the alien landscape outside. Suddenly, the door locks behind them, and a powerful bloodlust comes over Shu. She pounces on him with the intent to kill, forcing Chang to use Blitz in an attempt to calm down her agitation drip. He slams her into a wall with her tendrils and begins absorbing the excess drip from her system. Though he quickly subdued Shu, the Eye warns him that Shu wasn't fighting seriously. He reminds him of the various danger classes of Bizarros, with the most dangerous being the Abominable class, which moves down to the Hazard class, Fatal class, and the weakest, the Blood Rush class. Soon after the Eye merged with Chang, he can comfortably deal with most Blood Rush class Bizarros on his own. He points out that Shu isn't a combat type Bizarro, but a support and managerial type one. However, once her own agitation drip increases and she returns to her baser instincts, her actual danger meter spikes to fatal class. He sees it in action as Shu breaks apart her own body to escape his Blitz's tendrils. Knowing her background as a wall ghost in Chinese myths, he is wary of an attack from all angles. Something suddenly hits him from behind, sending him crashing into the floor. Shu acknowledges that his deduction was right. She can indeed phase through walls and cause objects to levitate, but knowing what she can do is just one part of the battle. Her arm grabs him from behind, keeping him firmly on the ground, while she re-enters her prosthetic body to mount him. She says this has all been a bizarro way of welcoming him into their world. However, she makes it clear that, though Nonentity may have acknowledged him, she values results above all else. Time will tell if he can impress. Cheng himself is quite stubborn and defiant, and he uses Blitz to smack her in the forehead with a tendril. Something inside Shu snaps. If this is how Cheng wants to play, she'll gladly play with him all night. The next morning, Nonentity drops in to check on them, and she discovers Cheng, strung up like a fly caught in a spider's web, with Shu sleeping comfortably on a bed. Nonentity takes them out for breakfast, and she apologizes for Xiao's rudeness. Apparently, during Cheng's test the previous day, something happened that put her in distress. Shu sheds her outer layer of clothes, revealing a cavity in her stomach. She explains that she was keeping a bizarro that somehow got away from her. That bizarro is called a Naru, a tiny, inquisitive octopus, and it's the same one that he and Nonentity saw the day before. Unfortunately, Nonentity believed at the time that Shu had it under control, and in hopes of correcting this blunder, she asked Cheng to help find it. He agrees, but only on the condition that he cuddles its arms. Cheng asks to explore the Naru's dwelling inside Shu, so he can get a better grasp of its habits and movements. She reluctantly allows him to stick his hand inside, but as he does, he receives jarring visions that, even for a bizarro, feel way too surreal. Shu apologizes for her rudeness before. Cheng notices that Shu has an excellent grasp of human etiquette and social cues, so he asks why she doesn't just live like one. She replies that humans are nasty creatures, always scheming with sinister motives. She throws the question back at him. Humans are normally terrified of bizarros, so why is he strangely fond of them? The real reason is much more serious than Cheng lets on, but he lies and says that people like him have good cultured taste. Later, Shu gives him a bit of advice. In managing bizarros, the greatest threat on a mission is humans. They arrive at a junkyard, where Naru was last sensed to be around. She asks if Cheng can sense it, but he replies that his ability only allows him to accurately identify them, and not communicate with them like a psychic, but it should know they are here. Knowing Naru's disposition, Cheng knows it must be around here somewhere. They hear a lady scream out, and they spot Naru crossing a street, with a frightened woman on the ground. However, even though Shu was right behind it, Naru somehow disappeared, which Cheng attributes to its inherent evasion ability. He talks to the frightened woman, who turns out to only be in distress because Naru ate some of her beloved betel nuts, in line with Naru's curiosity towards new things. The woman asks if Cheng saw a monster, but he replies that he spotted nothing of the sort. She apologizes for being weird for seeing one, which gives him Vietnam War flashbacks of being bullied for the same thing. Words that cut so deep, not even battle scars can compare. Suddenly, orderlies from a nearby mental hospital arrive and take the woman away, who is revealed to be a psychiatric patient. It looks like she was crazy. Shu meets up with Cheng again, and they continue their search for Naru. However, one of the orderlies overhears them calling the bizarro Naru, and he instructs the others to follow them. They follow Naru to a shopping district, and they assume it must have developed a taste for human food. This is their chance. It is not yet lunchtime, meaning they can recover Naru before the place gets populated. Shu asks what food he plans to use to bait out Naru, but to her dismay, Cheng shies away, obviously not used to dealing with real people. Hey, just because someone can talk to interdimensional eldritch horrors beyond comprehension doesn't mean he can maintain a conversation with a human being. We all have our highs and lows. Shu takes it upon herself to lead the way, bragging about how it is her time to shine. She approaches one such stall and orders, with perfect courtesy, a helping of fried chicken. She holds it up high, as though it were her crowning achievement. Luckily, Naru is right there, drawn to the irresistible smell of Chinese fried chicken. However, instead of jumping right at it, Naru scurries away, and they're back to the drawing board. Cheng begins thinking of something else they can lure it with, something with a deeper flavor. He points to another stall, and he orders a bowl of losifen. Shu wonders if this can lure Naru, and Cheng sure as heck hopes so. They already spent so much money on food they weren't even going to eat. Naru appears just as they had hoped. However, Chang notices that Naru isn't staring at the food but at their eyes, and he comes to a sudden realization. His encounter with Naru and Naru's encounter with the lady weren't because it was looking for food or because it was curious, but because Naru felt a certain passion or ease with them. Chang apologizes to Naru and asks if he was looking for a place to feel at ease. He then turns to Shu and says she should relax and eat some human food. Shu is embarrassed, but he tells her to trust him. He never misjudges Bizarros out of a track record of like one. This is all for the sake of changing up the atmosphere. Although embarrassed, Shu takes a bite, and she finds it to be delicious. When Naru sees this, it suddenly transforms into a beautiful girl, wearing clothes similar to Nonentity. It then opens its mouth and asks to be fed too. Naru's sudden transformation catches them both off guard. Based on Nonentity's previous briefing, Shu explains that Naru often transforms when it wants a more personal experience, or if something fascinates it to that extent. Shu reflects that Naru's transformation often mirrors the deepest reaches of its soul, causing her to wonder what meaning this female form has to Naru. Naru begins whining, but Chang has no idea what she wants. Shu points out that Chang is the Bizarro Whisperer, but he replies that he only has a deeper level of empathy with Bizarros. He's not a mind reader. Annoyed, Naru takes Chang's finger and bites down on it. When this fails, she again opens her mouth. Chang finally understands, and he lifts up a helping of noodles for her. Suddenly, Shu sees a ring appear around Naru's neck, and she fails to warn her in time. The man from earlier appears, with Naru now firmly on his electronic leash. Chang and Shu are shocked that people other than them can see Bizarros, which Four Eyes also finds to be a problem. Since they are not affiliated with his organization Moon Seas, he is taking them with him. He orders his orderlies to capture them, prompting Chang and Shu to commence evasive maneuvers. Chang asks who these people are, and Shu says they are obviously enemies. For now, their mission is to take them down and retrieve Naru. When he sees Naru writhe in pain, Chang activates Blitz, and tendrils sprout out to apprehend Four Eyes and his men. Realizing that they aren't fighting ordinary individuals, Four Eyes escapes. Chang complains that they were slippery, but Shu says that aside from the special tools and contacts that allow them to see Bizarros, they are ordinary human beings. Shu spots the ambulance from earlier, as well as the girl that the orderlies sees. They deduce they weren't going around finding actual patients at all. They free the woman from inside, and she asks if they took care of the monster. Chang says that Naru is no monster, and on the contrary, they plan to free it. Upon hearing this, the woman bites down hard on a nut, revealing herself to be a Bizarro as well. With a gaping jaw, she charges right at Chang and Shu.